Okay, welcome back to the Hammer Time Rackets podcast. I'm Peter Cipriano, your host, and with me today is one of my two coaches and all-time legend, Neil Smith. Welcome, Neil.
Peter, great to be here.
Good to be having you here.
Thank
We
you.
were just talking before the podcast began, and we're sort of at opposite ends of the spectrum today with how we've begun our day. Neil started with Wim Hof breathing techniques to calm himself down, and I've had 3 shots of espresso. So if there's a bit of a disconnect in in the level of energy, you will know why.
Yeah, I also don't have 2 children under 3?
Under 3.5, yes.
Under 3.5, yeah. So
yes.
Yeah, we are at different ends of the spectrum. Yeah.
So Neil, I think I'm just trying to think, the first time, at least one of the first times I ever went on court must have been with you when I was a summer guest at the R&T. Which was I think 2009, and then it took probably another 5 or 6 years to actually get back on court. But you were sort of always the guy for me that I was like trying to reach up towards when I was improving and getting better. And one of the things that is very special to me was having the opportunity to play together on the weekends and train together. And we've had countless hours of conversations about rackets. So this will obviously be the only one that's probably recorded.
I've recorded them all, don't worry.
Oh, have you? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
But I wanted to start by saying thank you for all of your mentorship and consultation and patience with me, because I know as a student, I can be somewhat frustrating, I'm sure, for a coach.
And your little bio was uncoachable. Yeah,
that's right. In my bio for
That's
the
not quite true.
match,
Yeah,
yes.
It just takes time to percolate down, I think, at some time. But it's amazing. It was 09 that you started.
Yep.
It's been quite a journey. It's been so much. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun as well, seeing you progress over these years. And I remember when you were starting to, we were getting competitive on court, and and we probably obviously started with a handicap, and I was giving you some points, and then it was like, the one day you're like, let's play level. I'm like, oh, here we go. It was that. And your projection was going up, and mine was going at best sideways. But your trajectory has been fantastic to sort of watch over these years, and how you've developed and played and matured as a player and everything else. That's one of the great sort of pleasures of coaching, right? You see the development of a player, and then it's sort of like at some point you're on your own. You don't need that. That's the goal, right? To sort of you're out of the nest and you're off you go, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that you're doing your thing as opposed to trying to do what I'm telling you to do. You're at the point where you can actually make decisions. As your best way to go forward. It's fun.
I think the opportunity at the R&T that I've had as a young player to have you and James, Jonathan, Devereaux, those kinds of guys to play and practice with and give advice, get advice from, and speak to has been unbelievably valuable as a rackets player trying to improve. And it's in great part thanks to you. So I wanted to go back because I think from what I've heard from when we've spoken about your history in the game of rackets and when you started, I think you picked it up a bit late, right? You didn't play as a schoolboy, right?
No, I did not play as a schoolboy. You want that sort of beginning?
I think remind me, you were friends with Steve Tully, and
I wasn't even friends with Steve Tully at the time. I was dating this young lady. I was 17-year-old. I was sort of at a community college, bumbling along, not really, just doing the, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was there going through the motions, not really enjoying it. Anyway, so I'm back at this girlfriend's house, and she's got a sister who was engaged to Steve Tully. And so we chatted, and like, he was, I think 6 years older, 5-6 years older. So, he's early 20s. So, I'm looking up to him like, oh, yeah, this is, and he's a good athlete, and he, really good football player. And he happened, he was the assistant coach down at Charterhouse, living in Godalming. And he said, what, he played a little bit of squash and tennis. Why don't you come and give this rackets a go? I'm like, what? There's no such game. You're making it up. So, anyway, he's like, come down. So I went down, and it was like the most incredible, ridiculous game I've ever seen. And it was, instantly fell in love with it. And so I started playing. He was so incredibly supportive and kind and enthusiastic, amazing. And he was the assistant with Roger Crosby up at Harrow. He was sort of training with Roger, and then he was going to take over from Charterhouse. I think Bill Hawes was retiring. So Roger needed another assistant.
Yep.
So I ended up going to Steve's wedding and meeting Roger Crosby at the wedding. We had a little chat. He's like, okay, that's great. Come on, we'll set up an interview. So down the road, another month or so down the road, I ended up getting an interview with Roger Crosby and getting that job. And I started as the assistant when I was 17. And I wasn't very good there. You can imagine that.
How much racket did you play?
I've been playing probably about 6 months. So
okay.
I was pretty bad. I mean, I had potential, obviously, but right. I wasn't that good. And I remember like trying to, we would go to the pub for lunch. I was 17. We'd go to the pub, have a pint or two at lunch, and then come back and play the first pair. And the first pair was like this Alexis Pren and Andrew Dick. He was like a farmer's son from Scotland, and he was like 6'4". And they were smashing the ball. I had no idea what I was doing. I was half drunk from lunch playing these massive kids that were bigger and older than me, and had been playing for 5 years. And it was like, this is nuts. But I survived that. And Roger was sadly just died, but absolute legend of the game, and one of the most enthusiastic, incredibly great human beings, and loved the game. And he obviously encouraged me to keep playing and keep getting better. And of course I did. I practiced a lot. I'd go into I'd stay up there during the week and then come back sort of Godalming during the weekend. And at nights I had nothing to do. I was just kicking around.
Yep.
I'd go back to the courts, and I still had to sort of buy my own rackets or borrow rackets. It wasn't really, so I'd sneak in and borrow some schoolboy's racket and practice there for like an hour. And they broke a lot back then. So to be honest, I did break a few rackets. And I basically, there was this big cupboard. He'd have this cupboard under the stairs full of rackets, broken rackets. I don't know why he kept them, but he did keep them. And I just sort of stuff them back in there. And I don't know. I'm one of those kids must have come in and borrowed it. I don't know. So I was, so it was pretty bad. But I mean, it was had to do what I had to do there.
Yeah.
So so that was. Looking back, I could probably donate a few rackets to Harrow.
I think all the man hours that you've donated as a rackets coach and professional and referee and player probably makes up for some of the the cash lost.
Yeah, I think everybody survived that cash
So,
flow. Yeah.
so you go from there to Queens, is that right?
Yeah, went from I think I was with Roger about 2.5 years, and then went to Queens, where it was. So I was the assistant pro there, Rackets pro there, well, pretty much the Rackets pro. David Johnson was the head pro, another legend of the game, fantastic guy, sweetest guy in the world. Haven't seen him for a while, but he was great. I stayed to begin with. There was a flat in Queens Club, sort of tucked around the back, and I stayed there with Jed Parsons, who was I don't know if you know Jed, but
No.
he's the assistant. He's an assistant. Well, not an assistant. He's part-time, I think, down at in what's the Essex court? AJ's court.
Say again?
AJ's court. Where's AJ? Old
G
court.
Court?
No,
Preston.
Preston. So
Yeah.
I think he's down there. But anyway, we were two, kids, in this apartment, which was fantastic. But it was a pretty pretty unruly time, because we had friends over, and it was a mess. But it was a pretty good commute back to the court. It was about 15 paces to the court, so it was
Not bad.
that was pretty handy. Pretty easy. Yeah,
A scenic environment as well, I'm sure.
yeah, it's beautiful. It was it's a beautiful club there. Yeah, I mean, that's where I started to get better, obviously.
So that must have been 1980, early 80s?
Yeah, early 80s. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got, at that time, I guess you must have had Pren, Boone, maybe
Pren and
James
Boone
coming in.
Yeah, to begin with, Pren and Boone were the two major forces there, and it's like you were either in the Boone camp or the Pren camp. There was nothing. It was a perfectly sort of balanced, two-party system there. And I was in the Boone camp. For the most part, I trained much more with Boone. Pren would bring in Nord Cripps, who was the pro at Eton, or he was the pro at, I guess I took his place at Queen's, and then he took over at Eton. But he'd come and train John a lot for these world championships and big matches. So I'd train with Boone. So that's where I got better, playing them. I mean, I remember days where Boone would have a 2-hour session from like 10 to 12, and then I'd come in and play. And I'd play from 10 to 12. And then I'd come in and play Pren from like 2 to 4. So I'd be playing these.
You get to play Federer and Nadal at the time, basically.
Yeah. So I got better pretty quick there. I had to get better pretty quick. Yeah.
It's incredible in this sport, like the opportunities that you can have as a player or pro, just to be able to play best guys. I mean, I say to people who don't know the game, I play a sport, like if I'm at work and they ask what it is in that building across the street, say, in that building, like they have some obscure sports, but you basically got like, John McEnroe and Roger Federer as the Rackets pros, let's say. And there's nothing like it in the world. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it's a great opportunity that. Yeah.
Well, I was looking back at some of the historical results. Unfortunately, the North American Rackets Association does not carry, I think, back past maybe like 2003, whereas the TNRA gives us, I think, all the way back to, let's see, the 1820s for the World Championship. So slight difference in tracking of historical tracking of results. So I couldn't figure out how many wins you'd had in US Open singles and doubles. But by my notes, you were 4-6 in the British Open singles. I did not check the British Open doubles. So I think it must have been that your first final for the British Open was in the late 80s against James Mayle, 1987. That's what it looks like.
Right, right.
So you're obviously coming through Boone and Pren in 86. Those are the guys at sort of the top of the game. Speaking with Pren, he had mentioned that he sort of was tailing off and giving up his title.
Right.
And then Boone plays Mayle. I think at the same time, maybe Shannon Hazel is up there, sort of
Yeah,
at the
yeah,
top.
he's still around. Yeah.
So what when you're coming in, you're obviously big time on the rise. What, late 80s, early 90s. Can you give me some, I guess, give me some recollections of your first few experiences as a finalist in these tournaments and how you finally got over the hump, I guess, in 1990 in the British Open. Was that your first title?
I won some pro singles before that, but not. I think the first couple pro singles, Shannon was still, I think Shannon was still in New York at the time, and then he came back and we had some good battles in the pro singles. But yeah, I remember the first British Open singles, because I think it was probably, the seeding was probably Pren 1, Boone 2, James might have been 3, and I might have been 4.
Uh-huh.
And in the semi, the semis were best of 7. And I'm pretty sure James played Boone in the semis and beat him. And then I went on in the second semi and played John. And I was 3-1 down and beat him 4-3. So that was sort of a breakthrough match there. That was I'd say that was I remember that as being sort of my, arriving, breakthrough kind of event there to overcome, Pren.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but the other interesting thing about that, and James, I watched your interview with James, and how he talked about that final where he had that sort of another moment after being 1-0 down to me and coming on and sort of going to another level. That was interesting to hear. But I think the interesting thing was I think we were both under 24, and he was, my point was that I think we played the under 24s that year, under 24 singles. And at the time I was the pro champion and he was the amateur champion. So it was it was moving, the tide was changing in terms of, John and Willie sort of moving on, and we were sort of, becoming more dominant, with Shannon as well, was involved in that as well. So that was, but that was a memorable tournament, definitely. That was a turning point for me. Yeah.
When did you wind up coming to the US? The early 90s or late 80s?
Yeah, early 90s, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty bad on dates, but yeah, I was in Queens for probably 6 or 7 years. So, and then moved to Chicago. Yeah.
And you go to Chicago, obviously, I think in speaking to Surtees, he had Jeffrey Atkins to play with. I presume that there weren't too many top players to be training with at that time.
No, it was a struggle to get players, obviously. I mean, I dragged John Cashman on the court, and at the time he was, I drag him to the gym. I found this Russian trainer, like crazy Russian guy. He looked like Mr. Clean, the sort of bald head and the white mustache, the earrings, in his 60s, but he was quite incredible. So I dragged John along to this training sessions in the morning, and we get on court quite a bit and hit. So he was really helpful, but there wasn't anybody of a top A level player, playing. So that was tough to sort of move forward or improve at that point,
I presume that a lot of the work at that time must have been solo stuff, like serving, all that stuff?
Yeah, a lot of, I mean,
Off-court
obviously, yeah. I mean,
training?
I based a lot of my practice on solo play anyway, so
Yeah.
you can pretty much do everything solo, on a
Yep.
racket. But not like, court tennis, obviously, biggest thing is returning serve. You can't really get much practice for that. But I mean, rackets, you can sort of simulate, reverse angles and do all sorts of other things. And so you can do a lot on your own, but obviously you need to be in competitive situations with with other people at some point to
Yes.
actually, well, I certainly do, yeah, to move forward, yeah. And there's that, I mean, there are only 3-4 tournaments a year, so
Yeah.
you mess
So you were
one of
going,
those
but you
up.
were going back to the UK, I presume, for a lot of these
I'd
tournaments.
go
Looks
back
like just based
for
on the
definitely. I
rankings.
go back for I go back for the pro singles, British Pro, and British Open most years. Yeah, yeah.
And in mentioning that, I think was, sorry, 1 second. We're just doing some construction in our office right now, so I apologize to you and all of our loyal listeners for the sound effects in the background. Am I correct in saying that you've won a pro singles in either the US or Great Britain in 4 different decades? 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 10s?
Yeah, I think that's right.
A pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, one of my, as impressive or like prouder moments is I've actually, that pro singles, British pro singles, I had a 33-year
Yeah,
gap from the
yeah.
first to last, and
I'm
I think
33 years old, so that's that.
right,
I don't know
right.
whether that's a good thing to hear about.
Yeah,
For
you've got
me,
a lot of years ahead of you, so
exactly. I hope so.
yeah,
I'm on the show. I'm a fellow lefty right now, having
yeah,
just gotten the
right.
surgery. So,
How's that going?
I was thinking actually today I got it. It's two weeks ago today. I think that I might step on court and hit some balls left-handed today. I don't know if the doctor would condone that, but
Nah, probably
what he
not.
doesn't know doesn't hurt him. And I have to say, I'm healing a lot faster than I had expected. So that's a
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Good to hear.
um,
David Emil may be your first opponent.
and I would probably lose to him again off of a 10-point
Well, that's
handicap right now.
yeah, full
Wouldn't,
circle.
wouldn't be the first time, exactly. Coming full circle. So you go from Chicago to New York. How did you wind up in New York?
Mike Gooding was there in his first sort of stint, I guess, and he was leaving. He was going back to England. I mean, obviously, Mike was more the tennis pro.
Yep.
So I think, as Eddie Allman was there, and I think he was pushing to get more of a rackets pro involved. So that's how I ended up there. Yeah, with Wayne and Kenny Jacobs. And Wayne was a big influence as well. I mean, not in terms of, I was a pretty lousy competitor. I mean, I wasn't that, growing up, I really wasn't very good at competing, and I didn't really compete at a very high level either. I sort of messed around, it wasn't like I was playing county squash or, college level, anything. So Wayne, again, he was sort of on his own doing his thing. At the time he was world champion as well. So I learned a lot from him in terms of, practicing and competing. And he's a smart guy, and he'd think outside the box a lot. He was sort of a fun guy to have around.
From what I've heard, his playing style was, I guess, unusual in rackets, I guess, as well. I think he may have, did he win the Foster Cup or he won the pairs? I think Wayne did Wayne grow up playing, or is he?
No, he's Australian. So
you know who I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of Julian Snow.
Oh yeah, right.
So you've got Wayne there. He's sort of showing you the ropes as a competitor. You go back and forth. I'm just looking back at these historic results to try to get a timing. So you've obviously probably are winning the US Open in the early 90s fairly regularly.
Yeah, depending on who came over.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you win the 1990, British Open. And then you get your first challenge in 93, where he lost to Male 6-5. I think,
Right.
had mentioned in that match that maybe, I think that's the match that he had mentioned was his sort of best result as a player. So was it the first leg was in
In Philly.
Chicago or in
Yeah.
Philly? And
Yeah.
did you win that leg?
Yeah. I won 4-2, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
4-2. And yeah, I played probably played the best match of I'd ever played to that point. It was as good as I could have played there. It was a I wouldn't say flawless, but it was a really a lot of times you're sort of not quite happy with your performance, but that was a great performance from me. I mean, from my point of view, and then turning around and playing at Queens the next week, James. I think it was really pretty close at the early stages, and James, probably one of the best sort of front runners. Like once he got ahead in that match, I had the feeling he was unstoppable. He was like 2-1 up or something, and it's like, and he's hitting these shots. It's like, oh god, it's like this. I've let him out. And it's like now I can't get it back in the genie's out of the bottle. It's like I can't get it back in. It's like, and he was phenomenal on that day, and that was pretty devastating. That was a painful loss, but he played incredibly well. Yeah.
But I think the flip side of it was, I'm sure that when you actually got the win in 99, despite the forfeit, having won the first leg, that must have been pretty darn satisfying. And then I know also you had the experience of the doubles wins. I guess the doubles and the singles that year, looks like there was a challenge 2 years in a row in 92 and 93. That's what it says, at least.
Right.
When you beat Male and Pren 7-7, 166 to 160.
Yeah.
Can you share some recollections of that match? That I'm interested.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go back to the singles first, because that was, I mean, again, I played really well in that first leg in Chicago, and midway through the match, I think there was a point where, and and I've only had it once in my life, and it was, I don't know if I told you this before, but it was close. It was, I might have been 2-1 up or something, and I might have been a little like 6-8 up in the game, and we were going backwards and forwards, probably 7, 8, 9 times. Nobody could score a point, and I had this ball in my backhand right hand corner, and I've been sort of cross court, cutting it cross court, boasting it cross court probably the whole match. And I decided to hit it down the line, and I hit a perfect shot down the line. He was so surprised and there was a moment where I looked over at him, and it's like his sort of, was a little bit of a head down,
drop,
shoulders down, and I look in the eyes, and then from that point, I'm like, I've got you. Like, I've never had that feeling ever before or since. I mean, maybe in a smaller levels, but like that was a big epiphany moment. I was like, whoa. So that was and I went on and won that match 4-2, and it was unfortunate that I didn't get to play the second leg, because there's a lot, like I know Willie Boone's like, oh yeah, he was lucky to win it. Blah, blah. I don't think I was lucky to win it. I think I would have won it. I would have won the second leg. Obviously we will never know, but I came off that match in the first leg like, I've got it. Like I'm gonna. I felt supremely confident at that point. Yeah. So so that was the singles.
Before you go to the double, did you actually go over Too
Yeah. It wasn't decided because he heard. I think he twisted it early in the match and then sort of was fine. And then really at the penultimate point, almost, I don't know whether it was like way. I mean, I was way up in the final game.
Yeah.
And he rolled it again, and so that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
But then, so we all went back over to England because we didn't. He didn't forfeit at that point. He didn't know. Nobody knew what the rules were going to be, or whether he's going to get a week's extension, and we we're all going to be over there for another week, or so we weren't really sure how that was going to play out. So we all went over, and partied after.
Sounds like he might owe you 500 or $1,000, whatever the plane ticket is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Send him an invoice.
Yeah, I'll hold my breath on that one.
So now we're going to the doubles, 166 to 160, which aside from the 2003 136 to 134 looks to me like the closest world championship match ever. Can you give me like your recap of that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember how we got. I mean, I remember going on to that last game. I guess we won the first. I think we won the first leg 4-3 or 4-2, and it got to that last game, and everybody's got their notepads out with a calculator trying to like work out how many points you're going to need, and it got, and we kind of worked it out that it was going to be 7 or 8, but we weren't completely sure. So it really was it was an exciting time. And I mean, I remember the other one, the Robinson Barker match where that was so close as well, and that was insane. But it's like we did get there, and I think the marker called out championship point when we got to, I think it was maybe 9 or 10, so they couldn't close that gap, or they couldn't win by more than 6 points. So that was insanely intense, but
I can imagine,
but insanely satisfying as well. That was a lot of fun. I mean, and I'm not that might have been the first one that we won, but
that was the second one.
Second
I have you guys 1990, you guys lost 8-5 Manchester and Queens. And 92 you won at Clifton and Queens, and then this was New York and Queens.
Right. Yeah. I think the New York match was a fantastic match. Yeah, I do remember that. I'm not sure, but I mean, Shannon, the last one we won, he had left England and he went to coach squash.
Yeah,
pretty much straight after, I think, and so he hadn't played for 2 years coming into
98.
Well, so his season ended, and I think it was his squash season ended. He was coaching down at Marion Country Club. Squash season ends about April or maybe March. So we had all of April to practice. Like he hadn't hit a ball for 2 years. So so all we're doing is practicing on our own. And it's like we had no idea how it was going to go. And he was probably man of the match.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, he was. It was pretty impressive. Yeah.
Awesome.
But I mean, as a pair, we were really, really good as a pair in terms of the balance and how we played and how we sort of matched up against, as in terms of coordinating, and there was never any kind of issues of who's taking that ball off the back wall, and it was, and how we covered, and we complemented each other really well. So it was fun playing with him.
And then I guess he must have not played anymore after 98, because in 2001.
We lost the last one, and I think that was about it. We weren't gonna put a challenge in, that's for sure at that point.
But then you made a comeback with Hubbard, right? You won 5.
That was another highlight, because I was sort of getting towards the end of my competitive playing career, definitely. I mean, and we just decided. I think I was over for a British pro singles, and we'd say, well, why don't we play some doubles together? I'll come over for the British Open.
Yeah.
So we played the British Open, and we almost lost first round. It was best of 5. We'd never played together.
Yeah.
Never played together. I probably got over there the day before, and we almost I can't remember who it was, but it wasn't a really, really easy match. It was quite a decently hard match. So almost lost that. Then that would have been it. I'd never have played with him again, and we'd have gone, oh, that was fun, and good luck. And
thanks for the look. Yeah, bye.
Good luck finding somebody else. So, and that would have been it. But we won that. We got to I remember we had a semis, a really, really tough semis. And I can't remember who it was. It might have been Cockcroft and somebody else, but I think Cockcroft was in the final. But I remember playing the semis, winning that. It was tight, maybe 4-2 or something, and think, oh well, yeah, we're gonna win the final now. It's like we're sort of gelling. We're on a roll, and it's like, and we did, and Hubbard, I told Hubbard afterwards, I knew we were going to. He's like, really? So, we were going to win the final, but it was, that was fun. That was great. And I think it was like a 14-year gap between me last winning the British Open doubles, so that was kind of fun. But the World Championship with him was quite an adventure, because he'd never played a World Championship.
Yeah.
Never played in the US. Never.
Yeah. So you only won the British Open, that one tournament.
We won the British Open. Yeah, that was it. It's a
much different situation than presumably.
Yeah, I mean, we would have had to probably play at least. Well, I don't know. Maybe if it was a strong enough field, we might have got a challenge. In this environment. He'd never played in the US. And he was shit scared of flying. He would not want to fly. So we had a practice match set up. He was going to fly out. We were going to have a little practice session like a month before. Everything's set up. We're all good. He can't get on the flight. He doesn't get on the flight completely. Refuses to get on the flight. I mean, I don't know whether he got to the airport or he didn't get to the airport, but it was like, oh, well, okay. Was he going to get here for the World Championship? Yeah. And there was somebody had bets on whether he was actually going to show up. So
out of fear for flying, or what?
Yeah, he was terrified of flying. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, somebody had a book, like it was a 50-50 that he was actually going to arrive for the World Championship.
Yeah.
And we were massively underdogs for that match. And he arrives, we have a good week. We had a lot of fun that week. He was really relaxed and had a great time. And we crush Foster and Hugh Williams, and he was on fire. He was absolutely on fire. Yeah. So that was, and then we go back to England and win the second leg, I think, first game. That was a lot of fun, because when he was on, he was spectacular. Yeah, he really was. And I mean, it's funny, looking back at some of the, you were doing, got the guy's best shot, what's the, blah, blah, yeah. His volley was absolutely fantastic. He'd take volleys in the back right-hand corner that were probably coming off the back wall and hit them well, almost for a winner, up above his head, like what are you doing? I was like, but he do it regularly, coming off the side wall. Yeah, but that was fun. That World Doubles was fun. Yeah, sort of a bonus. Yeah. Second one, not so much.
Now we're sort of, as to your point, like towards the end of your competitive playing career, which obviously then extended through, I guess, your last Open final singles would have been like early 2000 or early 20 teens, right? Or
Yeah, it
mid
was probably against James
yeah.
Stout. Yeah, it
And
was
then
his
the,
burst, and
I guess in
yeah,
the doubles
yeah,
would have been, I guess the doubles would have been us in 2017, which for me was an
yeah,
unbelievable experience. We got to play in Detroit,
yeah,
and getting to partner with you, having those guys there, even though we got chopped in the final in about 30 minutes, just having the experience, we had a good match, really close match. I think we won 15-13 or 18-6, 18-15, something like that in the semis,
right.
against Billings. Who was he playing with? I'm forgetting.
Yeah, I can't
Graham
remember.
Tyndall.
Right,
Um,
right. They weren't bad. Yeah,
they're pretty good.
yeah,
And I think you had beaten Rory Giddens as well, who had won the Tuxedo Gold Racket, and I think had
yeah,
made it to the finals of the Canadian Am. So that was, if that's a last hurrah, it's a pretty darn good last
yeah,
hurrah
yeah. I've
Detroit.
got a pretty good track record about beating like these young hotshots coming over from England, like Billings and ADV. I mean, I remember beating Alex Duncliffe Vines. I think it was in Boston. He was so pissed off. It's like, how the hell am I losing to this guy? And he was, I mean, yeah, and Billings and all these guys that were coming up, and Rory.
I think it's a style
Yeah,
thing, and I think it's a
but
function of the practice that you've done in the
yeah, I mean,
years
they're coming over. They got the
at
one
this.
serve. Yeah,
Yeah.
they got the one serve. They start to freak out on that, and
Yep.
it takes that coming over to the US first time or second time even is tough. Yeah, but it's yeah, that's entertaining wins there. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I think the thing that I think about your game, um, you have such a smooth serving motion, and that doesn't go away whether you're
no, no,
70, 60, 50, 40. So you always have like a puncher's chance with that great serving motion. I mean, you
yeah,
move incredibly well still, and your shot selection and execution of the shots, and the choices that you're making on the court, that doesn't go away. Like, you're a very smart player. And I think
no,
that's reflected even more in doubles. I mean, obviously, you're just results wise in terms of the world championships and opens. I think you're probably the best, if not top two or three best doubles players.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I played in 8 world doubles. I just looked that up the other day, and won 5. So I mean, I guess I got that record. But yeah, so yeah, as you say, like you can, it's a service dominated sport. So you
yep.
can, if you can still serve, you've got a chance of of getting some points on the board. Yeah,
Yeah.
and playing, as you say, like you can play for a long time if you're smart about it, and you can, especially doubles where you can maneuver and get into the right place. I mean, being in the right spot is 90% of it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you're in the wrong position, you're the fastest guy in the world. It doesn't matter. You're in the wrong position.
Yep.
You can be pretty slow and get to the right position. You can do some damage. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
anticipation and the
Yeah.
understanding of the
Yeah.
positioning and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So you had obviously, I guess in the late 2000s, James Stout comes to New York. And I'm interested to hear your take. Obviously, I asked Mr. Mail on what his take. He gave a very non-definitive answer on what he thought was the hypothetical Mail Stout uh,
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
But my question for you on that would be, he comes as a young guy, very athletic. When you saw him first play and come on court, what were your thoughts, and what was your experience in helping him train and become the player that he ended up becoming?
Well, yeah, I remember when he did come. It was, I can't remember who was games committee chairman, or it might have been Eddie Allman. I was like, we're thinking about bringing in this guy James Stout, and I'd heard of him a little bit. He won the Foster, and I said, fantastic, great, that'll be amazing. So he comes along, and he was 120 pounds soaking wet, and
Yeah.
yeah, the quietest guy you've ever met. But you wouldn't believe it now, but he just do his thing in the corner of the pro shop, and he was extremely quiet, reserved at the time. But he, I guess I was there sort of 3 days a week or 4 days a week. I'm not sure when he first started. And, we'd get on the court pretty much every week and start hitting balls. And, he was pretty green. He'd had a year of playing squash professionally. And so his strokes were all over the place. And, his movement was insane, but serve, he couldn't serve. I mean, it took him, and to his credit, he took that first year and didn't play any tournament.
Yeah, I remember you said that.
And that was pretty smart. Yeah. So he sort of kept it all under wraps for a year, practiced away. And I think he did a lot of, solo practice as well. And he improved extremely quickly. We'd go on court and we'd work on things. And I don't know specifically how I, helped him, but over the serve and we did spend a lot of time on court in the early days, which was when you're dealing with an athlete of that quality, it's like you're telling him to make a very subtle change, and you can do it, and you can adapt that really quickly, which is
it's like you're turning him like 10 degrees to the left,
it's a couple of degrees movement, and it's like off he goes. So that was really impressive. That was fun to see his development. And it didn't take him long. He came along. He improved so quickly. I'd say one thing about the stout male, hypothetical matchup. And I'd say
you got to ask, I think, out of anyone.
I think I'm the most qualified to answer this question. So I will
pay attention, everyone. It's coming now.
I'll give you my answer. So whether you want it or not. But obviously I played male a lot. A lot, probably more in competitive situations than anybody. And he was absolutely incredible in terms of his competitiveness. But then I played stout quite a bit. So, but in different ways, it wasn't really as a competitive situation, but more of a playing and coaching and training sort of thing. But I'd break it down into three categories. They both won the Foster. So it's like, at that stage of their career, which one would win the Foster? I'd say male would win the Foster.
Yep.
I think he was a little bit more advanced in his play, and Stout was still much more of a squash player back then. I mean, incredible, but still more orientated to the squash. Then I'd say their first world championship, which they were both around 23, 24, right?
Yep.
I'd give that to male as well. I think his level, his level of play was a little bit more sophisticated than James at that time. James was, relying on his athletic ability.
Right.
He didn't serve that well back then, and he didn't kill the ball anywhere near, and he wasn't as big. I mean, back then I think he's put on, maybe 20 pounds.
Yep.
So I give that one to male as well. Their first encounter as a world championship at 24ish, and then after that, I go with Stout, because I think his game was still developing and his serve improved.
I would say he has probably the best serve in the world. By a fairly wide margin.
And it was average. I mean, it may have been top 10, but it wasn't anywhere near. So that would have helped him out a lot. In the early days, Stout has cramping issues as well, and So overall, early days to male, and then it would sort of favor Stout from the sort of their late 20s onwards, to their mid 30s maybe. So
Well,
that's
it's
how
an
I would
interesting answer. I think we
call that. Yeah, it's
Rackets
difficult to
rolled up
just say one match, or if they just played one match, because I think they developed at different ages and hit their absolute peaks at slightly different ages.
Yeah.
But both of them, it would have, they're both they're competitive. I mean, nature would have been incredible to see. Yeah, it's so yeah, would have been fun. Yeah.
So I think the last question we had sort of touched on it a little bit was obviously your longevity as a player, in competitive situations is ridiculous. So it spans basically from the 80s. I mean, who knows what might happen in the 2010s if they ever have a tournament again, if they allow
Yeah.
us to play sports again. I'm doing the math in my head. I guess in 4 separate decades, you've won Opens. I would assume if you got and you've won pro singles, if you get the right draw and the right part for singles, or the right partner for doubles, who's to say that you can't get it done in 5 separate
Yeah,
decades?
I'm
I
looking
guess
for the
untouchable.
right. Yeah, I'm looking for the right partner in doubles, I'd say. Yeah. and I did have the right partner in doubles lined up for 2020, but he decided not to play. But we'll discuss that later.
Can't
But
win 'em
anyway,
all.
we've still got like 9 years to go in 2020, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
plenty of time. Yeah,
Just got to show up, baby.
got to show. Yeah, got to be in it to win it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, very good, Neil. I really appreciate this. It was a special treat for me, and I think for everyone else to hear this stuff. I think next time we will either have one of the following 3 things. We'll either have Harry Foster, James Stout, and Jonathan Larkin, or the schoolboy pros, some combination of like Break, Briars, Makey,
Right.
some group with Ben and Ed. So looking forward, those are all on the agenda at some point over the
Fantastic.
summer. I'm going to let you go. We're coming up on the 55 or hour mark.
Right.
And hopefully I'll be seeing you on court, whether it's right-handed or left-handed. I don't really care at this point. I just want to get back to playing.
Yeah, great to get you back on court. Will I have to play right-handed?
No, we'll let you play lefty. We'll do
Okay.
Otherwise, it will just be the Spaz Olympics, which I'm not.
It'll be pretty ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
All right.
Peter, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Neil. Take
Yeah.
care.
Fun.